Chat, the Encouraging One Another podcast, where it's all about encouragement.
This is Joel Gibson Jr. Home.
Shotgun in the cab of my old truck. Got everything I need, a full tank and a little weed, just because. I roll the windows down and crank up the country music to 35. I slip on my shades and put the hammer down and leave the kids at county behind. North Cascades to the Badlands, Jackson Hole to Lynchburg, Tennessee. Niagara Falls to the Outer Banks, Boston to Vermont to Yosemite. Driven every road in Yellowstone, nothing feels like home. Somehow it just soothes my soul. I don't think about nothing. The stress of life can't find me on the road. I pull to the side and watch the sunset off Highway 101 and crack a beer. My idea of heaven is what I'm doing right here. Mount Rainier to Horseshoe Bend, Lakes and Tusties to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Bozeman to Denver, North Dakota to Vegas to San Diego.
I'm going to get in the car and just go for a road trip. Listen to that song. That's Home by Joel Gibson Jr. And you can check out his music at joelgibsonjrmusic.com. Man, I want to get in the car and just drive. I love going for road trips and crank that song up and let's get going on the road with Joel Gibson Jr. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Chit Chat, the encouraging one another podcast. I'm your host, Jody Sheffield, and each week I try to bring you some fun, interactive conversations with some amazing people from all walks of life, comedians, musicians, sports personalities, and many more. Today, I get the opportunity to talk with a sports legend in my eyes, because he was on sports radio in Seattle for over 30 years. As his career processed, he was a sports gypsy. He was all over the United States doing whatever gigs you could find. He did sports radio. He did music, DJing. And so I get the opportunity today to talk to Jeff the Fish Aaron. We had a fun, great conversation. He has a trivia company now in Arizona called Fame Trivia. So much fun talking to him, picking his brain about sports and just what he does. Also in this podcast, I have a song by Joel Gibson Jr. called Home. His website is joelgibsonjrmusic.com for upcoming events and merchandise as well. Also, I have the Grieve the Astronaut. My good friend Raymond Hayden has an amazing group. I share one of his songs as well. And a guest I have on in a few weeks, I'm excited to talk with her, Robbie Harte. I share with one of her songs as well, and can't wait to talk to her and really get her who encouraged her, who's inspired her throughout her career. And this podcast is all about having fun and encouraging others. And yes, at times, I triple my words. My editing ain't the best, but you know what? I'm having fun meeting people and having fun conversations with all walks of life. If you're looking for a perfect podcast, this is not it by any means. I just have fun. I do the best I can. And, when you have fun and just love what you do, that's what it's all about. And this is what it is. This is Chit Chat, the encouraging one of the podcast. My guest today is Jeff the Fish Aaron. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jeff the Fish Aaron, sports legend. And I've listened to him forever on the radio station. Welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Sports legend. You're much too kind, but I'll take it.
Well, I moved here around 1990, and I've heard New York Vinny and the Sports Babe, and I heard you and Mitch for a number of years. And so it's I've been a sportsaholic all my life.
Well, I was too, and I always feel fortunate that I was part of that Seattle radio scene, which I think was during the epitome of the best time to be on the radio in Seattle. Was those formative years in the 90s where Seattle wasn't yet a real burgeoning big city sports town, but it became one with the Mariners and the Seahawks and all that stuff that went on. But that was a good decade to be part of, and a lot of cherished memories, no question.
Before we dive into some fun conversations, I'm going to pick your brain with some thought-provoking brain questions for you. Are you ready?
All right, go ahead.
You're creating the ultimate quarterback challenge matchup, and you got to choose 5 quarterbacks, past or present, living or deceased, to be part of this quarterback challenge. Who you picking?
What's the challenge? They're competing against each other in throwing contests, or
4 events. There's the accuracy, hitting targets, mobility, and the longest throwing distance event.
All right. So I need to pick 5.
Yes, sir.
All right. It's funny. I just had a bar conversation about this last night with a bunch of people. Well, there's going to be a lot of obvious ones here. I think John Elway would be on the top of the list, just given his incredible athleticism and his mobility. So John Elway would be more than welcome to the team. And I've often said that Aaron Rodgers is the greatest thrower of the football ever. May not be the greatest quarterback ever. You could make the claim that he is, but I don't think anyone could ever throw the ball from so many different arm angles, the short throws, the flare out passes, everything. He could do it also. Elway and Rodgers come to mind. I'll throw Dan Marino in there, because Dan Marino has that quick release and can throw in traffic and wasn't that mobile, but always put the ball on the money. So I'll take Marino. And that leaves me with two more. It's funny. I'm gonna leave Brady out because Brady's just great at everything, but not superb at any one thing. So Brady won't make it because of his subpar athleticism. I'm going to leave Peyton Manning off the list
Ooh.
for the same reason. Drew Brees can't throw the ball as far down the field. So one of the competitions was throwing the long ball.
There.
All right. Well, then I'm gonna go total wild card, and I have to pick someone from my favorite team, the Raiders. I'll take the Mad Bomber, Darryl LaMonica, and I'll kick everyone's rear end in the long throw contest.
Okay.
And then I guess I have to take one of the new age guys. You got to take Patrick Mahomes. Like he simply can do it all and throw on the run and everything. So I'll put Mahomes in there. So Mahomes, Marino, Elway, Rodgers, and then I'll win the long bomb contest with my friend Darryl LaMonica.
That's a good competition to watch.
There you go.
So now you're in charge of finding a place for the Super Bowl. You must find a location outside the U.S. and any two in the AFC team and AFC team, past or present. Who's going to be the matchup and where are you going to put it at?
Oh boy. Well, let's see. The 85 Bears come to mind just simply because that defense was such a juggernaut, so dominant. But I mean, and you can't just pick your favorite teams for everything. So the 85 Bears, I'm trying to think, the Pittsburgh Steelers steel curtain defense.
Yeah.
So, I might just go for a nice game that's going to finish with a score of 10-7. Take the 85 Bears against like the 76 Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay.
The steel curtain against the Chicago Bears would be a kind of an epic brawl of a football game. And I want to go to the game, so I'll just put it in Canada. So that way I don't have to worry about traveling overseas to go see it.
Yeah. I haven't been to Arizona, but if I came down for a few adult beverages and have dinner, where's Jeff's favorite hangout spot?
Well, the funny thing is everyone that comes to visit here either A, is coming down for a spring training baseball game or they're playing golf. So you almost in every case end up near one of the touristy areas. Old Town Scottsdale is where I always, whenever someone says, hey, let's go meet for drinks, and you just go to Old Town and there's a bar there. I'm probably going to always get it wrong. It has to do with bootleggers. It's either the moonshine or the bootleggers. I think it's called bootleggers. And they sell this bacon appetizer platter where there's 5 different kinds of bacon. But when you walk into the bar or restaurant, it just smells of bacon and beer and bourbon. So the smell gets you in there. And it's kind of my go-to place because I like to try the 5 different styles of bacon and have a couple of nice frothy IPAs and enjoy myself. So it's either called, I think it's called Bootleggers or Moonshiners. It's in Old Town Scottsdale.
You had me at bacon. I'm ready for some.
Yeah, you can't eat it every day. And I usually eat fairly healthy, but you can't resist the smell of bacon. When they got 5 different kinds of bacon with dipping sauces and everything else, it's an easy sell for a lot of my visiting friends.
I like to make some caramelized bacon with some brown sugar and some cayenne pepper and throw it in the oven, and it's like a candy treat.
Yep, that's part of it too. That's part of the bacon platter they do there. So if you're down here, got to go.
For those out there who might know who you are, could you give us a little bio about who Jeff Aaron is?
Well, I was, and I can tell you're cut from the same cloth. I was just one of those young kids that loved sports. I grew up in Pennsylvania. I was a huge Pittsburgh Pirates fan, but I weirdly became a Raiders fan because there was a player from my hometown of a town of 13,000 that played with the Raiders for like 9 years when I was a little kid, and his family owned a restaurant, and they had Raider helmets and posters on the wall. And my dad would sit one of those round bar stools that kind of pivot back and forth, and he'd read the paper and have his coffee, and I would sit there and have like a couple of sodas, and my dad would be there talking to his friends, and I'd read the sports page. But I became this huge Raiders fan, and I always said I wanted to do something sports related. And then I went to college as a communications major, and I didn't do very well in a lot of the English courses, was going to be a sports writer. And I stumbled upon radio, worked for the college radio station, ended up doing some sports for the local college teams and did some basketball play-by-play and got involved. And the minute I graduated high school, I became a radio gypsy, and I moved from state to state, town to town. Whoever would give me a paycheck for talking on a microphone, I went. I lived in Colorado. I lived in Georgia. I lived in Virginia. I lived in California. I moved all over the place, and I found my way in life kind of as a radio gypsy. And my longest stop was Seattle. I spent 32 years in Seattle.
Wow. So I hear a song in my head. You're a gypsy. The Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, and I probably have seen over 2,000 concerts. I worked in music radio for a long time. I was a program director at a station in Savannah, Georgia. I encountered so many people and famous rock stars and famous people. And you know what? I don't have too many regrets in life. I really enjoyed what I did and wasn't the best at it, but was successful enough to say I made a living on the radio.
That's awesome. Was there someone you loved listening to growing up that really just caught your ear, or just kind of everybody because you moved around so much?
Well, it's a lot of the music I loved. I ended up, and I think most people that know me, I was very near and dear friends with Alan White, the Yes drummer, who recently passed away just a couple of months ago. And it was the last time I made it to Seattle was just this past May. I went to see him a few days before he passed away. But for me, growing up as a huge progressive rock fan, I loved Rush and Yes and Pink Floyd and all those bands. And all of a sudden, I'm hanging out and drinking beer and partying and going skiing and traveling with one of my iconic people that I looked up to, Alan White. So it was a dear friendship of mine, and that's just one of many. I met, I'm good friends with the bass player from Queensryche, for example. I used to love the band, and all of a sudden, hey, he's my golfing buddy. So it's kind of nice when you meet people that you are impressed with and admire, and they turn out to be very genuine people, and you get to become friends with them. So it was rewarding.
When choosing sports, broadcasting, that career is very different than turning records. How did you kind of get in the groove of sports and just kind of talking about sports?
Are you talking about the difference between sports and music radio?
Yes, sir.
Well, I went anywhere anyone would hire me. So one radio station had a job opening for a morning DJ at a music station, and I was pretty good at that. I had equal interest. I loved music and I'm very knowledgeable when it comes to rock and roll and pop culture, and I loved sports. Those definitely were two of my passions. So whenever opportunity presented itself, I went to the one that fit my needs at the time.
Gotcha.
So I spent a few years in music radio, and I'm pretty creative and used to come up with fun ideas, and had a very successful morning show and did that for years. And then all of a sudden, life throws curveballs at you. All of a sudden I'm married and have a kid, and my wife wants to move to California. So all of a sudden I leave a job in Georgia working in music radio, and I go to Sacramento trying to find my way in Sacramento. I end up working for KFBK radio, and lo and behold, the Sacramento Kings are coming to town to Sacramento the year I got there. So all of a sudden I was able to carve out a few jobs working with the Sacramento Kings basketball team when they moved to Sacramento. And that was sort of the first step that I took, that I knew I was going to end up in sports radio for a long time, was when I got to Sacramento.
Is sports radio hard to do when your home team sucks?
Well, that's a good question in a weird way for me, because I don't like the way that sports talk radio has sort of developed over the years. It has become, to me, a little too much of Homer radio, where if you're a talk show host in a city, of course you're going to talk about the local team, and you want to focus your conversations more or less on that. But I don't think you have to be I wasn't a Seahawks super fan at all, and I was one of the few guys that came on the radio in Seattle and said, yeah, I'm a Raiders fan, I'm in Seattle, I can talk Seahawks football, and maybe I'm better at talking Seahawks football because my heart's not as invested in the team.
Right.
So I was able to look at the team more X's and O's and cut and dried. And, I had great relationships with the Mike Holmgren team. And, Tom Flores was one of my all-time favorites, even though he was very unsuccessful in Seattle. And I wasn't afraid to criticize the Tom Flores there, even though I have great respect for him. And now he's a Hall of Famer. Had a great relationship with the Holmgren Seahawks, but they weren't my favorite team. But I think sports talk is thought-provoking and opinionated, and I don't need to hear someone say, sis boom ba and root for the home team all the time.
Right. I'm still a big Bo Jackson fan, what he accomplished, him and Dion in their era to do both sports is just unheard of, especially Bo being a running back. I mean, it's still one of my all-time favorite athletes. What they did, it was amazing. Your thoughts?
Well, my son got me an autographed Bo Jackson football for my birthday last year, and it's in my Raider corner. Bo Jackson, to me, and it's to me so sad that his career had to end so abruptly with the hip injury that he suffered with the Raiders against the Bengals in that playoff game. But he was that one running back. He'd take that quick pitch in the backfield, and you didn't know whether he was going to gain 2 yards or 62 yards, but you knew he could do either one of them anytime. And I know he set some sort of record. He had like 6 runs over 65 yards in one season. And it's a shame we didn't get to see the complete story of Bo, but breaking the baseball bat over his knee and hitting a home run in the All-Star game, to his speed and the highlights against the Seahawks running through the Kingdom Tunnel and all that. But yeah, he was as exciting as it gets. I wasn't so much into the whole Deion Sanders era as much as maybe you or some of the others. I certainly appreciate his athleticism and all that, but I thought Bo Jackson was in a whole nother level, even above Deion Sanders. The next year, and the Raiders took him with a 7th round draft pick, and all of a sudden, boom, the Raiders are negotiating. Bo Jackson says, "I'm going to play football," and it was like such a euphoric sports moment. Like, Bo's going to play football, and the Raiders got his right. So it seemed like just such a perfect match. And the weekend that he got hurt in the Bengals playoff game, and the Raiders advanced to the AFC Championship game, Bo got hurt, was done, and they pretty much knew his career was over. And the Raiders' whole organization really never recovered from that. They got beat 51-3 by Jim Kelly and the Buffalo Bills the next week, and really the Raiders kind of faded into obscurity, other than a few of those John Gruden years. So for Raider fans, Bo was kind of the last big deal.
Yeah. What was it like? Your internship of Hard Knocks. What's it like being an intern and learning the ins and outs of radio?
Well, I was most of the people that are in sports radio in Seattle to this day, they came through the Jeff Aaron internship of Hard Knocks. I was one that always was very good at helping the young broadcasters. So Bob Stelton, and even Softy kind of came up through the ranks of my internship program. Dick Fain was an intern of mine, and there's Tony Gardner. There's many others that were. Dave Burns, who's a very successful talk show host down here in Phoenix, came through the Jeff Aaron's intern school of Hard Knocks. But I always gave an intern an opportunity to actually be on the radio, do sports updates, meet and interview, famous people, and let them find out right away whether it's something they were going to be good at and did they want to pursue it. Because in radio, if you're doing it for the money, you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Your career of doing a ton of shows, how do you make your show stand out from the others? Is it interviews or an X factor that you really make people come back to or listen more often?
Well, I learned a lot from a lot of other hosts. You kind of take what you enjoy from listening to others. But I always felt like kind of had my own style. I did always pride myself that, I don't, not so much nowadays, but I could name a guy like John Clayton was an inspiration to me, because John could tell you who the third string left tackle was for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 1979. He had that kind of knowledge. So you have to have street credibility when it comes to sports. And I always felt I had such a nostalgic memory and a knowledge of trivia for old school, even baseball and football. But when I developed my own style and started having to interview people by myself and do my own show that had my name on it, I always prided myself just in research and knowledge. So if I knew I was going to have a famous athlete on and going to have to interview someone, I looked up his family. I found out, did he have a sister who was a great athlete, or something that would make that person feel more comfortable with me, and also know that I took the time to learn about them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, especially my last years in radio, when I felt I started to combine a lot of what I learned over the years, was, how to make an interview special and get people to relax. So I didn't care about their statistics. I wanted to know what their favorite food was or their favorite movie. So I always kind of tried to make my interviews very personable.
One of the times I loved listening to you and Mitch was when he had Beano Cook on, and man, he would just go on historic topics and all kinds of stuff. What was it like talking to Beano?
Well, again, Beano was one of those guys that was he reeked of originalism. When Beano talked, you knew he wasn't playing a character. That was Beano. He lived in a hotel at the airport and had stacks of media guides across his living room, and you knew that. You knew he was kind of different, and he was a character. He was odd, but he was a true original, and he was, I mean, riveting. If Beano Cook was talking, you couldn't help but listen. He was utterly fantastic, and the world needs more Beano Cooks. I'll tell you, he was something else.
I had the opportunity to talk to Dick Fain and New York Vinny and a few others, and I asked him when they heard the passing of John Clayton, what was your thoughts and memories of John Clayton?
Well, I have a great John Clayton story, but John Clayton and I go way back. When I referenced my little hometown, which was St. Mary's, Pennsylvania, where Dan Connors, the middle linebacker of the Raiders, is from. John Clayton's first ever job in his life was at the St. Mary's Daily Press, my hometown newspaper. John and I both grew up in the Pittsburgh area, so I've known John for a long time. But the real quick story is me and my son were sitting outside of PNC Ballpark. It was one of the first years the new Pirate Stadium was open, and we were back there for a summer vacation. And me and my son are at this little sidewalk pizza restaurant outside of the stadium, and we're sitting there, and I'm watching fans just stroll on by, and there's thousands of people. It was a pretty big game, and probably 30,000 fans at the game. And all of a sudden, I see this T-shirt, and it has big red letters, KRKO AM 1380, which was my Everett radio station. I'm like, oh my God, some guy's wearing a KRKO T-shirt here in Pittsburgh. I was flabbergasted. I'm like, oh my goodness. I said, why would a guy have our T-shirt on here? And I was just giggling with my son. And as the guy got closer and closer, I'm like, it's John Clayton. I'm like, John. And John came over, and we knew each other very well. And he sat down, and waitress, a very, very pretty girl, was the waitress waiting on us. And she sees Clayton, and she's like, oh my God, you're my boyfriend's favorite. And she's getting Clayton's autograph and getting her picture taken with him. And we were laughing at how John Clayton was a rock star. And again, like Beano Cook and like Bert Sugar, the boxing guy, and John Clayton, the football guy. There were certain guys that they knew what they were talking about. They had credibility. They were original. They were entertaining and irreplaceable. John Clayton is a absolute classic.
I believe he's one of the legends of Seattle, and he moved here. I saw him on the radio, a TV show, and like, that's John Clayton.
There's so many people like that in Seattle. I was good friends with Pat O'Day, and again, there's the most original, and just his voice and his inflections and his incredible storytelling and the life that he lived. And Dave Niehaus, I used to tell Dave Niehaus, you get nervous if you're talking to Jay Buhner or Ken Griffey Jr. in a crowded locker room and everyone's hearing what you're saying. But Dave Niehaus made me nervous because he was such a legend. He was like interviewing a superstar player because he was thought of so highly by everyone. So just the fact that I was able to not only meet, talk to, and be friends with all of these people that we're talking about makes me feel very proud of my years on radio in Seattle.
And I'm sure you shared the story a few times. Vaguely tell us how you got your nickname, the Fish.
It's much disputed by others, but I'm the only one that knows the story. Mitch always disputed it over the years, but Mitch was hired to be the afternoon host at KJR, and in his first few weeks there, he was raising some eyebrows and causing headlines, and he would talk about girl tennis players in sweaty outfits, and people were like, ooh, they didn't know what to make of him. And one day he was sick, and they needed a fill in for his show, and I was the sports director, and Tom Lee was the program director, and Tom goes, can you fill in for Mitch this afternoon? I'm like, sure. So I think it was a noon to 3 show, and like at 11 o'clock that morning, a big news story came in, and it was a tragic one, and it was Reggie Lewis of the Boston Celtics died of what turned out to be a cocaine-induced heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
And me being Mr. nostalgic and know everything about sports, I did a show. The show focused that day on athletes who actually passed away while their careers were still active. So we brought up different athletes over the years that, died while they were still.
Right.
Today, Mitch comes back on the air, and his first question was, well, how did the guy do that filled in for me? Let's take some calls. And the first guy called in and goes, I don't know what the hell it was. It sounded like a fishing show. And Mitch goes, what? Somebody was doing a fishing show? And they started picking on me for no reason. And I was miffed about it. I didn't like it at first. And they're calling me in. And he goes, some guy said you were doing a fishing show. And I said, I wasn't doing a damn fishing show. And I was getting mad at Mitch. And later that night, Mike Gastineau was having a party at FX McCrory's to celebrate like his 3rd or 4th anniversary of being on the air. Joke, and had some girl sheepishly walk up to me and say, could you autograph my bag of cough drops? And they were fisherman cough drops. So everyone started calling me the fisherman, the guy that does the fishing show. And at first I didn't like it. With a nickname, sometimes you get saddled with a nickname. And I realized this wasn't going to go away. And it kept getting larger and larger. And people started calling me the fisherman Jeff Aaron. Then obviously it's got shortened to the fish. And then I embraced it and turned a negative into a positive. And now, to this day, people down here in Arizona still call me the fish. They don't know why, just because everyone calls me the fish. So I've learned to love it. But at first, I wasn't real thrilled about it.
I was reading an article in which an athlete added a little something to a celebration for when you kind of interviewed him. Do you remember who that was?
The Sean Alexander?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's a little known story. I should have gotten more publicity for that. Sean Alexander was kind of a regular on my show, and for whatever reason, he enjoyed being on my show, and we had a nice relationship. And he started doing those touchdown dances, and in the year that he ended up winning the league MVP and broke the single season touchdown record. And a lot of people were giving him advice on different end zone dances to do. So one day I had him on my show. And I said, Sean, you need to do one for me. And then I kind of explained to him what I wanted him to do. He was going to cast out the football and hook a fish and reel it in the end zone. And I said, you're going to reel it in like the fish. And he thought it was a very clever idea. And lo and behold, and I didn't know he was going to do this, but when he actually either tied or broke the single season touchdown record, I think he scored against the Rams, and it was like his 26th touchdown. And all of a sudden, Sean reels it in. And I was hosting a party at the Swinomish Casino, and there was a big crowd of people. And I told him, I said, Sean might be doing the fisherman today. And when he did the fisherman, the whole bar just erupted in applause. It was one of the greatest moments for me. And then Sean went on Fox Sports later that day and acknowledged that he did it for his friend, the fish. And that was a very, very nice moment. He's a good man. And that was a pretty incredible moment in a radio career for me.
That's pretty cool. Do you remember your very first interview doing sports radio?
Yes, I do actually. I was put on the air here in Phoenix, believe it or not. It was after leaving Sacramento. I never had done a talk show, but I'd done sports reports and stuff. But I got hired to do a morning show in Phoenix, and I had never done a talk show in my life. My audition to get the job was they put me in a room and they turned on a reel-to-reel tape player, and they said, this tape lasts for an hour. You talk for an hour. And I sat in a room with no notes, no newspaper, no books, no nothing, and talked for an hour. And when I got done, they listened to it and they said, okay, you're hired. So then on my very first radio show, my very first guest was Lavelle Edwards, who was a head football coach for BYU.
Yep.
Who happened to be in the Phoenix area doing a coach's clinic. And I had a girl that was a part-time producer, and she says, well, I'll call this coaching clinic and see if we can get one of the coaches on. And they're like, okay, we got Lavelle Edwards from BYU on. And he was the first interview I did. And it was great. I was nervous as all heck. And doing my first show, I had boxer Michael Carbajal. I had a few fun guests on that day, but Lavelle Edwards, and now the late Lavelle Edwards from BYU is my first guest.
This podcast is about encouraging others and sharing encouragement and inspiring words. Has there been someone along the way who really gave you some encouragement along the way, some additional advice, the do's and don'ts?
Well, I mentioned a few of them already.
Yep.
Dave Grosby was one that steered me in ups and down times. In broadcast. Once I was in broadcasting, he helped me through some of the trials and tribulations you experience. There was a gentleman. It's terrible that you're asking me for someone who was inspirational and I don't know his name, but there was a man in Sacramento, and I was trying to get radio gigs, and my audition tape wasn't very good. He said, let me help you with that. And he took me in the back room and he laid everything out for me, and he added all kinds of special effects, and he didn't know me. I didn't know him. He took time out of his personal life and helped put an audition tape together for me, which I ended up getting hired for several jobs with, all because some guy just took a few minutes of his time to help me out. And that stuck with me my entire career. So that's why I was always very helpful to interns and helping people prepare to get jobs. Because if you have the passion to be in radio, it's a lot of work, and you need a lot of luck, and you need help every once in a while. So that unknown gentleman to this day helped me more than he'll ever know.
I'm gonna throw a few names at you. You guys describe them in one word. Dave Grosby.
Wow. Well, I can't do one word on the Groz. He's too big. He's the Groz. I just posted on Facebook about the Groz, and I don't know what the word would be for Groz. He's intimidating, but he's impressive. He's the Groz. The Groz is the perfect name for that guy.
The Gas Man.
The Gas Man. I always say me and Gas Man are very similar. We both love music and pop culture and movies and concerts, and we think the same. Gas was just much more organized than me.
Okay.
He's organized, and he's driven, and he pays attention to detail, and he's taken. I think Gas has taken similar talents that I have that he has, but he's taken it to another level because he's more organized, and he's a wonderful guy. The Gas Man, love him.
Dave Softy Mahler.
I'm not talking about that guy. No, Softy's brute passion. There's two words: brute passion. He's loud. He's obnoxious, but he's real, and you can't ignore Softy when he's in the room. And he has high energy, that's for sure.
Can you tell us about the famed trivia, which you do over in Arizona? A little bit about that.
Well, I've always hosted trivia shows, and I always did a lot of trivia contests back in the early days of radio. Trivia is not cool anymore on radio, and you ask a sports question and start taking calls. But I grew up doing a lot of that, so I ended up, even as far back in the 1980s, hosting trivia nights at bars. And it always started off as sports trivia. When I was at Cairo Radio, we created the College of Jock Knowledge, which was, 3-person trivia teams playing against each other in sports trivia to win brand new VCRs or televisions and stuff. But I learned that I was very good at dealing with the public and hosting events. I was always hosting football parties and hosting events. And a long story short, this story will kill all your time in your podcast, but I never took trivia nights. I would make extra money doing trivia nights, but I got a call from a guy in Australia who was trying to establish a trivia company in America. And he Googled or searched for names. This was about 20 years ago. And he came across me because my name came up as Mr. Trivia from KJR and all this stuff. And he wanted to start a company in Seattle. And he met with me and he goes, "Do you ever think about doing trivia and making it into a company?" And he explained to me how, you can get different people hosting, you write the questions. And anyway, he gave me the business model for a trivia company. In 2012, I started a trivia company, and it really, it took off, and it's been very successful. And it sort of took the fear of being, an old guy in radio and not being able to get gigs anymore. I always feared being the old timer in radio, and all of a sudden you're out of a job. What do? You did radio your whole life. You're not capable of doing anything else. I had a nice, successful business built, and it's still going strong. I have I have 7 locations up in Washington. I have 5 locations down here in Arizona. So every week I'm doing 12 trivia nights or bingo nights or football party nights, and it's been very successful and very rewarding. So I'm very happy with it.
How can people hook up with you and figure out location-wise and kind of come join in?
Well, I'm always available on email, which my email is pretty easy to remember. It's thefishonradio@gmail.com. And there actually is a famed trivia website, and it's on the top. It says Australia and the United States, and you click on the United States one, and there you have me, and famedtriviausa.com.
Are you versed in trivia knowledge? Is there a specific topic you like most?
Like, for example, Wednesday night I hosted trivia, and every quiz that I write has a number to it, and I did quiz number 487. So I've written 487 quizzes, which is about, I don't know, 8 or 9 years of trivia every week. So I don't retain a lot of it. I am pretty difficult to beat in a trivia contest, but I don't like, for me personally, I don't go to trivia nights because I feel too much pressure. I get nervous because everyone expects me to know the answers because, oh, you're the trivia guy. You own a trivia company. You're supposed to know everything. But sadly, I don't retain a lot of it. So I'll do a question about state capitals for 10 straight years. And if you ask me a state capital, I'll say, I don't know. So I don't retain a lot of the trivia knowledge, but I would say I'm pretty fair at trivia. Yes. But no, I'm not doing a trivia contest today.
I think I stumped you and Mitch on your show one time. I called in and asked you who was the original Indiana Jones actor, and it was Tom Selleck. And he was doing Magnum PI, and he couldn't get out of his contract, so he passed.
Yeah, I would know that one now, but yeah, I vaguely remember that. The Stump the Band used to be.
Yep.
The Stump the Band was a lot of fun for me, and that's kind of where I developed the reputation there. They would call me Mr. Trivia because I would answer more of those questions than anyone else. But yeah, Tom Selleck didn't necessarily turn it down, contractually wasn't able to become Indiana Jones. There's quite a few of those out there. Eric Stoltz was the other one. Eric Stoltz was going to be Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future and even filmed scenes for it, but he just didn't fit the part and got replaced by Michael J. Fox.
Mm-hmm. I know Mitch would love that band button. Band.
Band from Mitch in the Morning. Yeah, I was on Mitch's podcast, I would say probably more than a year ago, but we haven't talked really much at all since our partying on KJR, but I made a couple appearances on his podcast, and I wish him the best. I don't speak ill will of him. We weren't super close friends, but we learned a lot from Mitch. Mitch was a very good broadcaster and remains a very good broadcaster. But, I got tired over the years of having to answer Mitch questions all the time, but I took nothing but positives out of that relationship.
Yeah, I heard Mitch in the morning and Mitch in the midday, and I heard a lot of you guys as I was my time, back in the 90s, I guess, and I really enjoyed a lot of the DJs or sports personalities, I guess you could say. So as we begin to wrap up, if there's someone who wants to kind of dabble into the field of radio, any words of encouragement or words of wisdom you might have for somebody?
Well, it's changed so much. I'm not sure that because of the whole podcast world, I mean, anyone on the street, and I mean, you're doing a podcast, it's a whole different genre, and it's not something that I wasn't real good at tooting my own horn, and I wasn't the type when social media became prevalent that I was going to try to build up Twitter followers and get as many Facebook friends. It just wasn't my person. It didn't suit me.
Mm-hmm.
And now, it's so hard and so different from how I came up in the business that I don't know how much advice I could give someone other than, usually talent rises to the top. And if you're passionate about something and you work hard enough, usually you find your breaks and find your way there. But radio I saw it coming, 15 years ago, what the future of radio is going to. And again, that's why I kind of thought, boy, I need something else to do just in case. And thankfully the trivia filled that void. But I wouldn't have too much encouragement other than if you're passionate, you work hard, persevere, good things usually happen.
Sounds good. Those are encouraging words.
Yep.
But thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to talk to you. I know we had a few difficulties, but hey, we got through it. And thank you very much. And I wish you nothing but the best. And it's great talking to a sports legend. It's Jeff the Fish Aaron. Thank you so much.
Very good. Great questions. Enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
Take care of yourself.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Break for 30 seconds.
Hungry? Craving tacos? If it's Tuesday or not, you gotta have tacos, right? Tequiza, tacoshop.com. They're located at the Chit Chat Mall. They have tacos, and more tacos, and chimichangas, and burritos, and taco salads. You get it. They have amazing food, as well as beans and salsa and grilled jalapenos, my favorite. Their food's authentic, made fresh, and they're locally owned and operated. They got a Facebook page too, and a food truck with amazing breakfast burritos. That's Tequiza Taco Shop, TAQUIZA tacoshop.com. Their phone number is 360-698-4335 to place an order. The address is 10315 Silverdale Way, Silverdale, Washington. That's Tequiza tacoshop.com. TAQUIZA. Tacos, and more tacos are waiting for you. This is Grieve the Astronaut. Put aside your worry.
Did you think that life was simple? Did you think you had a plan? In the path that lay before you, God lent a helping hand.
Did you think you'd be happy? Did you think that you'd be sad? When the truth reveals the answers, you start to understand.
And I know feelings are buried inside. And I know unlocking them helps decide. Put aside your worry, put aside your pain. Don't let these things distract you or carry you away. It's time to write your story. Time to walk away from the lies that you've been living that have led you astray.
Did you think you'd be happy? Did you think you'd be sad? When the truth reveals the answers, you start to understand.
And I know feelings are buried inside. And I know unlocking them helps decide. Put aside your worry, put aside your pain. Don't let these things distract you or carry you away. It's time to write your story. Time to walk away from the lies that you've been living that have led you astray. Put aside your worry, put aside your these things distract you, no, will carry you away. It's time to write your story. Time to walk away from the lies that you've been living that have led you astray.
So powerful words. Put aside your worry. That's Raymond Hayden. You can go to check out RaymondHayden.net for his music, and he's such a tremendous musician and gifted artist. And so that was Put Aside Your Worry by Grieve the Astronaut, one of the groups he plays in. This is Robbie Harte, Outside My Window, a musician I'll have on in a few weeks. I'm excited to talk with her and share with her about her career and her amazing music. So get back and relax. This is Outside My Window by Robbie Harte.
The car is parked in your driveway. It's been sitting there since that Friday. Your favorite song has stopped halfway since the last time you hit play. Can't believe I never knew the hell that you were going through. Only saw your smiling face as you drove by. Never saw your tears stained eyes or the life you tried so hard to hide. Finding demons day and night inside your mind. Hello, I see you waving low whenever I look outside my window. Life got short, it's such a shame. They will never be the same. Words unspoken, so much blame. Lives are broken, no one says your name. Can't believe I never knew the hell that you were going through. Only saw you smile and wave as you drove by. Never saw your tears stained eyes or the life you tried so hard to hide. Finding demons day and night inside your mind. Although I see you waving low whenever I look outside my window. A bright and beautiful soul tried so hard but she lost control. The pain behind closed doors couldn't bear it anymore. You took more than you could take, and it stole your breath away. So many came to say goodbye, left everybody wondering why. Hopes and dreams are laid to rest, never got to where you ping pong to rest. Can't believe we never knew the hell that you were going through. Only black is standing in line to say goodbye. As we wipe our tears stained eyes, wish we would have heard your cries. Finding demons day and night inside your mind. Although I see you wave hello whenever I look outside my window. Although I see you wave hello.
That's Robbie Harte, Outside My Window. I'll have her on in a few weeks. What an amazing song. This is Chit Chat, the encouraging one other podcast. What it's all about, encouraging others.
Thank you for joining the Chit and Chat Encouraging One Another podcast today. And I hope you really enjoyed the interview with Jeff Aaron, as well as the music from the musicians that I've talked to and interviewed over the past. And maybe check out their websites and listen to the music on social media, YouTube, wherever you can find their music. And continue to follow along each and every week, a brand new episode with a brand new guest, and just sharing encouragement and sharing people's stories from all walks of life. This is Chit and Chat.